Welcome to our community. Susie Thomas with you this morning. Very happy to welcome Rachel Hunka to our studio. She is from One Center for Leadership. Good morning.
Good morning.
Rachel, you have so many fun stories about you. There's just so many directions we could go, but I suppose we ought to talk, first of all, about One Center for Leadership. Tell me a little bit about what this is. It's a new initiative, isn't it?
Yeah, so the One Center for Leadership is an initiative that was launched by River Tree Christian Church. And the big picture vision is that it would be a place that multiplies kingdom leaders to transform communities. And we do so through collaborative workspaces, coaching, and conferences.
Does it happen at River Tree or you go out? Do people come in or you go?
Neither. So we actually purchased the old First Church of the Resurrection that's in downtown Canton. And First Church of the Resurrection they are the oldest church congregation in the city of Canton. Mm-hmm. And they are still there. So when we purchased the building from them, really it was just that they weren't using the building to its full capacity anymore, but they also wanted to continue to exist as a church. And so we bought the building in exchange that they would be our first partner and they would get us a 100-year lease. And so they are still there. They still meet on Sunday mornings. They're running some great Wednesday evening programmings right now. I know they're doing partnerships with Habitat, and they have a meal ministry. And so
nice.
We love the congregation at First Church of the Resurrection. But we're using the building. Basically, all of our partner programs and all of our programs run Monday through Saturday, and we really guard Sundays for them.
Mm-hmm. What are these partner programs?
Yeah, so within the One Center, we have roughly 25 partners. We have what we call our collaborative partners, which are people who have actual office space in the building. So one of the first things that we did was just sort of small renovations. The church did a fantastic job of maintaining their space. And so we just did small renovations and turned all of the rooms throughout the building into office spaces that are now being leased by both for-profit and nonprofit organizations. And so those are the people we call our collaborative partners. And then we also have what we call our community partners, who are, if you think like organizations that are either startup or they're mostly remotely run, so they don't need an office space, but they do need boardrooms and private meeting spaces and Wi-Fi and printing. That's our community partners. So they pay a monthly fee, and they get access to all of those things.
This model sounds vaguely familiar, a lot like the Martin Center that your in-laws started.
Yeah.
Is that where this idea kind of came from, or is it a similar pattern?
So actually, the vision came from Jason Lance. He's the visionary leader of the River Tree Christian Church movement.
Yes.
And so the idea was sort of Jason's, and actually Jason and I worked together years ago at Love Canton. And he actually was Corey's youth pastor growing up.
Corey being your husband.
Corey being my husband, and my father-in-law, Terry, was one of Jason's volunteers. So our families are all really linked.
Yes.
But yeah, Jason is the visionary leader behind it. And then when he hired me as the general manager, I sort of executed it. And then as far as it goes with the Martin Center, they are fairly similar, and we actually work really closely with the Martin Center. So the Martin Center, most of the partners within their building are focused on community development, and most of the partners within our building are focused on leadership development. We actually pass back and forth our volunteers and people a lot, and actually Third Street Community Church, which meets inside the Martin Center, is one of our partners in our building.
Well, that was my very next question. Is Third Street part of it?
So Third Street
Corey is the lead pastor, yes?
Yes. So
okay.
Third Street is one of our partners. A lot of their staff are in there, and so we intentionally work really collaboratively with the community. My desire for the One Center is not that we would just see organizations coexist, but that we would see them intentionally collaborating and working together in our community.
It's all in the family, isn't it?
Yes.
And isn't it something when we find out, like there'll be a startup of some nonprofit because they see a need and they want to fill it, and then you find out all the other places that might be doing something similar to that. If we could all get them together, man, the synergy there would be amazing.
Yes. In fact, one of the things that we actually do every single month, our administrative and events person at the One Center, her name is Becca Klein, when she interviewed with us, one of the great ideas that she presented and why we brought her on was this initiative called Coffee and Collaborate. And so the first Friday of every single month, every single person who is a partner of the One Center comes together at 10 a.m. on that Friday morning. We have a shared teaching. We feature one of our organizations so that everyone can hear what they're doing. And then we conclude that time together with what we call our standing meeting, where every organization gives an update on what they're doing. And so it's a really phenomenal time where everyone can hear all the different things that are happening within all these organizations. And we try to keep the meeting to under 40 minutes with the hope that you would take the remaining 20 minutes of that hour and go meet with an organization whose work is intriguing you.
How can a person participate if they feel they've got a leader inside of them and they just need to develop that?
Yeah, so there's actually a lot of opportunities. There are some things that are perks to being a partner. So you get first access to what we call our Leader Connects, where we bring in professionals on a specific topic. But then we also have things like there's an organization called Giant Worldwide that's one of our partners. They are absolutely phenomenal. One of their sort of taglines is learn what it's like to be on the other side of your leadership. And so, yeah,
That's dangerous.
I know they are so good. I have been through Giants training, and I will say I came out of that understanding so much more. The way that I am wired, the way that God created me to lead, made me so much more aware of my weaknesses so that I understood what other people were hearing.
Yes, it gives you empathy for those people who are following you.
Yes.
How does that work? How do they reproduce you so that you are experiencing you?
So they go through this training that's called 5 Voices. And it's sort of like Myers-Briggs or like an Enneagram, but significantly simpler. It's broken down in a way that's so much easier to understand and really like grab onto. It's really sticky language that they use. And there's all different programs that Giant does. So they have something called Missional X-Core. They have something called X-Core, which is getting to the core of your team and your functionality and bringing the best functionality out of your leadership teams. And then they have, and this is probably the easiest entry point for someone who's wanting to develop, they do monthly toolkit sessions, which are free, that are at 11 a.m. the first Friday of every month. And so that's something that anyone can come to. You do not have to be a partner of the One Center. It's an easy entry to learn what Giant is and their specific leadership training. And then you can get more information on some of the other programs they offer.
Is there a starting point that you need to attend, or can you come in just anyone at 11 a.m. and which day? Friday?
The first Friday of the month.
First Friday. Well, that's
Yes.
easy to remember.
Yes.
So first Friday, 11 a.m., head over to the One Center, which is located where?
901 Tuscarora Street East in Canton, 44707.
Okay, and you'll know it because it's that really old church.
Yes.
Very
yes.
cool.
And those toolkit sessions are standalone. You don't have to have been at the previous one to understand what's happening when you enter in.
Will they ever repeat? So wherever you dive in, you could keep going so that you get the ones you missed?
I'm sure they would. And Susie Lance is the one who runs those.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, so marking this on my calendar right now.
Yeah.
First Friday, 11 a.m. at the One Center for Leadership.
Yes.
And these, you actually experience somebody leading the way you lead. You're on the other side of it?
No, it's
How does that go?
program that you go through to learn the best parts of the way that you lead and the weaknesses
And the
to the way that
worst
you
parts.
lead. And so basically it's there's not someone on the other side of you because there's only one you.
Got it.
But it's learning your personality to learn what it's like to be on the other side of you.
And what other personalities, how best to work with those personalities
Yes.
as well.
Yes.
Boy, that sounds a little dangerous. I think of, how the Holy Spirit convicts and the enemy condemns. It would be so easy to go through one of those things and come away going, oh my gosh, I should not be leading anybody. How does that happen, or how do you keep it so that it's convicting, not condemning?
So that's in the way that Susie and Al D'Angelo is one of the other big Giant leaders in the area. It's in the way that they lead and the way that they teach it. They are so gracious, such strong Christian people. They really have learned how to empower people to not see their weaknesses as debilitating.
Right. Seeing our weaknesses as an opportunity to bring somebody else in to bolster that part up and do what you do.
Yes.
Do you and let them do them. And then you've got a whole. It is interesting. Those personality things are so interesting when you find out there is not a wrong personality.
Right.
We just need to
Right.
learn what are the assets and strengths of our own and then learn to appreciate those in others. Mm-hmm. What a cool thing. And that's only one, right?
That's only one. That's only one
That's
of
an
the
entry.
organizations. Yes.
Okay. You said that they do a number of topics. What kinds of topics are covered there at the One Center?
Oh gosh, we have so many partners that have hit every different area of society, and that's very intentional in the way that we have brought partners in. So it's really interesting. We are in like such a strong post-Christian society. There's more people than ever who have never stepped foot inside of a church. Mm-hmm. And so what we're trying to do with the One Center is to see the gospel infiltrated into every single area of society. And so our partners, who you'll find when you come in the building, cover everything from counseling to empowering women in business to technology, to youth development, to motivational speaking, worldwide church planting, after school programs. I'm trying to remember. There's so many. Our partners are absolutely phenomenal, and they are really out in the world living out the gospel in every single place that they live and work and play.
Every single thing you're talking about are seminars that you pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars to send a team to. Can anybody come to these? I'm thinking, who would not want to take advantage of this? Can anyone, or is this really centered on trying to develop the city and the urban area, or is this open to all?
So one of the things that I want to make sure is understood is that all of these organizations within the One Center, this is where they work. Mm-hmm. And so if you would want to have a meeting with, for example, She Elevates.
Wow, she's awesome.
Yes.
Okay.
She Elevates is a phenomenal organization. So
okay.
They're one of our businesses that have their headquarters in the One Center. So if you were going to have a meeting with Dolores Presley or Vicki Hogan, mm-hmm. You would probably be meeting them there. And we would have the information on whatever events or seminars or anything are upcoming for She Elevates. They don't do all of their events within the One Center because mm-hmm. they have phenomenal resources.
Yes.
At places like Kent State and Kent Stark, where they sometimes run some of their events. Their gala, I know they did in the city last year. But if you were going to have a meeting with them, it would be at the One Center.
If you want to locate a who's who of everybody doing something, though, it sounds like they're actually accessible to you. Like you can go in and meet with Dolores Presley. You just set up a meeting. Yeah. Because you're talking about local celebs here. That's kind of amazing when you think about it. This woman, how does she have time with all the things that she's doing to just sit down, look across the table and have a chat with you?
Oh, Dolores and Vicki are superhuman. They are.
They are.
They are wonderful.
They are.
Their office is actually right down the hallway from mine, and I love having them in there. They are just people who are so filled with joy. But if you wanted to get a hold of any one of our partners, you can go to onecentercanton.com, click partners. You'll see all of our partners listed right there, and when you click on their names, it'll take you straight to their websites, their contact information, all of that.
Where did this idea come from? Was there a need for this, or who sat down and said, boy, you know what we really ought to do? How did this all start?
This is something that Jason had been talking about since our days working at Love Canton together. Mm-hmm. And we did sort of a micro version of this within the building at Love Canton. And then, it's something that has just been building in him over the years that he just really wanted to see a collaborative workspace where everyone was coming together for a common vision to just serve and grow the kingdom of God.
Was this a hard sell or an easy sell with all the people that you spoke with?
You know what? I actually came on staff right as all those conversations were finishing up.
So all was done.
Yes.
And you got to step on in.
Yeah, so I kind of came in at the execution phase. But from what I have heard from Jason, it was just a really common thing laid on his heart as well as the heart of the elders for First Church of the Resurrection.
Wow.
They were just praying. They were praying for someone who would use that space for the kingdom of God and that their church would be able to continue to exist. And Jason was just praying for a space a space where he could bring together like-minded organizations to grow kingdom leaders.
And how wonderful to be able to use that building, that sacred space, every day of the week.
Yeah. No,
Rather
it's
than
great.
how many times do we have these beautiful churches and they're busy on Sunday and then kind of empty a lot of the rest of the week. So
Yeah.
it's fun to see.
And it's great. I mean, it is so great to work alongside First Church. Their elders are some of the absolute sweetest people. And JR and Amy Roscoe, who were just brought on as co-lead pastors.
Yes.
I actually worked with Amy at Malone. And actually, JR was the high school youth pastor at the church that I attended growing up. I grew up at River Tree, and he was the youth pastor. And so we sort of like had crossed paths so many different times, and so it's just so fun to be working alongside them again.
Every name you mentioned just brings such warm memories. All right, I'm looking at the clock. We need to take a short break. Speaking with Rachel Hunka from One Center for Leadership, and we'll be back after these words. You're listening to Our Community. Welcome back to Our Community. Susie Thomas visiting with Rachel Hunka from One Center for Leadership. And Rachel, you yourself have such an interesting story. I mean, it's just so awesome listening to your passion. Where did this come from? Where did your heart for people and to just bring them, woo them into the kingdom of God, where did that come from?
That is, how much time do we have?
Well, let me say, I'm looking at a former Cavs girl.
Yeah. Yes.
Which kind of opens probably some doors for you.
Yeah.
It's a fun thing to let people know. But there's so much more to you than that.
Oh, yeah. That's actually, honestly, I'm a very stubborn person. I am Italian-Irish, and I have a very big personality. I talk with my hands, as you can see across the mic here. And so honestly, I even ended up a Cavs girl just because when I was young, someone told me that I would never make it as a dancer, and I said, "Oh, watch me."
Oh, man.
So that's it. That's how I ended up there. I was a diehard Cavs fan and going to school in Cleveland, Ohio. And I'm like, you know what? Just because she told me I'd never make it, I'm going to take this as high as I can. So that's the whole story on that.
Well, congrats on that.
How I even landed there. But ending up working in the church, it's just funny because that is just not a place I ever saw myself, ever in a million years. I grew up in the church, but something I discovered about myself as an adult that I think it's so funny it took me so long to discover was that I am an introvert. Looking back on my childhood, I know. Looking back on my childhood, it makes so much sense. My siblings are not a lot older than me, but they're older enough that by the time I was coming into my own, my brothers were away at college, and I just spent so much time just with my mom. And growing up in the church, I never liked going to youth group or anything like that. There was nothing wrong with it. It was just so loud and there was so much happening, and I never liked going to youth camps or anything like that because it was like I was just so exhausted by the time I was done with it that when I grew up in the church, I loved helping my mom teach second grade Sunday school.
Oh, neat.
That's what I did. And I held babies in the nursery. And then I would just go to main service. I was like this child sitting with my parents in the main service begging them to please not send me to Sunday school because I didn't want to have to do all the talking and running around and everything else. And so I grew up learning an adult version of faith, and I loved it. It was so like thick and rich and everything that I learned. And
what was different?
I don't know. It was just I never got a watered down version of anything because I was sitting in adult Bible studies and I was sitting in the regular sermons as I learned the story of Jonah and the whale that is real as opposed to getting swallowed by a fish and VeggieTales. And I love VeggieTales. Don't hear what I'm not saying. I watch it with my kids. But I just had such a
But
rich...
you got the meat before the milk.
Yes. And in so many ways, I'm so grateful for that. But I actually walked away from my faith when I was in college because suddenly I was surrounded in all these people who were so different from what I experienced. I was so used to sitting alongside my mom and dad in service, and then suddenly I'm, surrounded by people who I thought were Christians, but are doing things that just did not line up with my faith at all. And so I just had a really hard time with that. I didn't really know how to respond to people my own age. in their
Wow.
faith.
Wow.
So that's the downside of what I experienced. And so it did cause me to leave the church. And those years they were rough. When I found my way to graduation, I graduated from college in 2009, and I had no job. I couldn't find a job. I moved home, and my dad said, "Hey, listen, you need to work. You're not. I understand that you graduated, but you need a job."
I love you and everything. But
yeah, he's like, "You're great, but college was expensive. Get a job." And so that's actually how I met who are now my in-laws. My dad had this friend who was running a small faith-based nonprofit and needed a communications person, and he's like, "Go work for him until you can find a job."
And you were an answer to prayer for them. They
Well-
needed somebody who knew how to do that, and you knew how to do that. You stepped right in.
Well, in a lot of ways, they were an answer to a prayer I never uttered.
Yeah, wow.
Because I went into their office just assuming, well, these are Christians, so they're clearly going to be terrible people. I'll take this job, but I'm very aware that this is going to be awful because Christians are hypocritical people.
Wow.
And so I learned a whole lot about who God is and his character, and that actually my experience was, and why I left the church was because I was holding the sins of broken people as equal to the character of God.
Have you ever gotten an opportunity to tell them that?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
That's got to be very
we have
humbling.
every holiday together.
Well, that is true. Yeah.
yeah. I married their son. So.
Yes. It's just got to be a humbling thing for them to know that they were being watched and they cut the muster. You know,
Yeah.
that's because we all need a savior. It's very easy in the throes of running a ministry to have your very worst side of you show.
Yeah.
And they did not. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So I mean, going through all of that, I remember going on trips with them and meeting some of the children that I was developing.
And these trips were not just across town. These trips were, tell us about where you were going.
So one of my favorite things that I got to do for them was develop the materials for their child sponsorship program. And
In Peru.
and Ecuador, in both.
And
yeah,
Ecuador,
in
wow.
Peru and in Ecuador. And so I was developing their materials, and I just went to them and I said, I don't feel right using these kids' pictures and doing things like that, but not actually knowing them. That doesn't sit right with me. I want to go meet them. And so I went. Terry, who was running Child Reach Ministries at the time, he's like, great, let's go. And so we went, and I got to sit down with the kids, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like these kids are so inspiring. I love them. I want to use every happy picture of them.
Yeah.
Because they should be seen smiling, and they should be seen with their best selves forward. And I just loved it. I loved what I was getting to do. And I remember coming home, and Corey, their son, he was a part of this church, Love Canton. And I was just like, I don't understand. Why do people just sit in a church on Sunday mornings? Why don't they do this kind of stuff all the time? And that's when he just said that, there's people that do. Mm-hmm. And so he took me to downtown Canton, which, my family is from Canton. My grandpa went to McKinley and my grandma went to Timken. And but he took me to places that showed so much more of the city than I had ever seen.
Yes.
And I fell in love with it. I fell in love with Take the Hands of Hope and the Lighthouse Ministries. They are doing such amazing things, and they are truly the hands and feet of Jesus in our city. And they are people who are doing God's work every single day of their lives. And basically, how I kind of came around to loving all of this is I'm like, this is real. This is the gospel incarnate. This is Jesus tangible. And so that's why I love everything that I get to do with the One Center. That's why I want to bring so many of these people together. Because when we pool our resources and we stop operating from a scarcity mentality, we are no longer limiting the power of God, because every penny and every resource on this earth belongs to Him. And when we bring them together and we work together, we show a fuller picture of who God is to the people around us.
You said that so beautifully. I need to go back so it doesn't fly over our heads, so that we're not operating in a scared city mentality.
A scarcity mentality.
Scarcity mentality. Tell me what that is.
Yeah, so acting as if our resources don't belong to the Creator creator of the earth. When we operate from a scarcity mentality, we're operating in a way that acts as if our resources are going to run dry. But what I've seen of God is that nothing runs dry.
Right.
I mean, when you look in Isaiah, he talks about how he'll take deserts and turn them into the mountains of Lebanon. That's amazing. That's amazing. This is someone who is saying, I can take a desert and I can cover it in greenery.
Yeah.
So why don't we believe that in the way that we lead?
When we read that, the imagery is so perfect, but if you've not been to Lebanon,
Yeah.
you kind of miss that. And in our heads, Lebanon might be this war zone. But my father-in-law, being born in Lebanon and came over as a young child, that's what he remembered. He said, what I remember is all the green, just so much greenery, and all the trees were just tons of trees. That's the picture we should have when we're reading the biblical Lebanon. That's that he can turn a desert into that.
Yeah.
Is amazing. And it's not even hard for him.
It's not. It's not. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Rachel, this is so much fun. All right, we are speaking with Rachel Hunka from the One Center for Leadership, and your role is you are a head honcho there, right? What is your official title?
My official title is the general manager.
General manager. And what do you dream of this looking 5 years from now?
Oh, man. 5 years from now, honestly, I would love to see the One Center continuing to thrive. It has taken off at a pace that none of us were ready for in all the best ways. And so I would love to see even more partners operating within the building. But ultimately, I would love to see more One Centers.
Oh.
I would love to see them popping up in other spaces where people are looking around the city and saying, there's so many great things happening in my city. I wish they all knew about each other.
And worked together.
So maybe one pops up in Cleveland Heights. Maybe one pops up in Massillon. Anywhere where you have a space that feels like it's being underutilized, anybody can do this.
That's a great goal. This could be national. You need to just put together a little thing of how we did it and tell and show others, because what city doesn't want to have everybody working together hand in hand?
Listen, procedures are my favorite thing.
And that's why you've been selected to do this.
So I have packets that I could hand someone and say, this is how we do everything. Do it in your place.
Here, go do this in L.A.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh, gosh. Yes, please. Let's put one right on Fuller's campus. Let's stick one in the middle of L.A. Yes.
Okay, there's a deal. We've just decided. That's good. How do people reach you? How do they find out more?
Yeah, so you can just go to onecentercanton.com. And there's a page on there where you can just click contact us and send in anything you want to know. On Instagram, we're at One Center Canton. On Facebook, we're just the One Center for Leadership. You can catch us in any of those places. Pretty easy.
Rachel Hunka, thanks for all you do in our community.
Oh, thanks. I love the city.